Hey folks, it's Dr. Kaye Whitehead here with another episode of our COMloquium events, where we have an opportunity to sit down with thought leaders from around the country to talk about their work, talk about the state of America, and talk about what we should be doing next. I am joined now by Dr. Andrea Sullvian. She is the author of a newly released book, The Sacrifices of Superwomen, Natural Remedies to Restore Balance. She's going to speak with us about what we can do to make better choices, to take care of ourselves, and to prioritize self-care. I am reminded of something that I heard Toni Cadman-Barr write about when she said there's a difference between being healthy and being well, that we have to make the decision to be well, to really center self-care and not see it as being selfish. Dr. Sullvian, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. I can't tell you how grateful I am to be able to do this and to talk to your audience about my book, because
I'm excited about that. It's absolutely needed. Actually, I will start with we're trying to just center what I'm struggling with. I've been dealing with some sickness in my chest, and I went to your book where it talks about what do you do in terms of natural remedies. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of restoring balance, not just taking medication when we are under the weather, as people would say, we're not feeling our best, not immediately going to Tylenol or NyQuil or DayQuil, but thinking about the restoring of balance. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. Well, first, as a naturopathic and homeopathic physician, we also are into prevention. So, for example, one of the chapters in the book is about sleep. And I put sleep, what a concept, because I can ask every single patient, new patients especially, of course, how much sleep do you get? And they'll say not enough. Just like the question, how much water do you drink? And they'll say not enough. There's some very basic lifestyle things that we can do to prevent dis-ease, as I call it, not disease, but dis-ease, and not necessarily have to move toward the direction of pharmaceutical drugs. So, for example, we need to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and most of us don't do that. I need 8, I know that. Most of us get 5, or people will say, well, I go to bed at 1 and I get 8 hours sleep because I get up at 9. But our brain decides, for whatever reason, to release toxins between 10 and 12 p.m. So the ideal time to go to sleep is between 10 and 12. And so that you can have those neural connections working optimally, that is the time that you want to get your rest. And 8 hours is ideal. There's no doubt about that. Without adequate sleep, you've got poor concentration, you've got poor immunity, you've got poor memory, you've got fatigue. So all of those things can assist, sleep can assist with all of those things changing. And as you said, it's about choice. Probably my book has the word choice in it 1,000 times, because it's not about necessarily your background even. It's about the choices you make now. And yes, our backgrounds play into that because we have certain thought processes from the microaggressions and the macroaggressions that we've all suffered, but we still have to make different choices every moment, not just every day, every moment, whether it's food, whether it's thought, whether it's how you're going to respond to a situation. Those choices are important.
Now, I know you are the first African-American to receive a PhD in sociology and criminology from the University of Pennsylvania. How does that background, your kind of academic background, tie into the work you've done getting a degree in naturopathic medicine?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it does tie in, especially this book is a culmination of that. And my first book as well. My first book was called A Path to Healing, A Guide to Wellness for Body, Mind, and Soul. That was put out by Doubleday several years ago. But nonetheless, this book talks specifically about the Sojourner Syndrome. The Sojourner Syndrome, Sojourner Truth was a woman who was definitely for the collective. She spent her life talking about the intersectionality of racism and sexism. She was one of the first people in the Declaration of Sentiments, which was a document that was put out by the women that had that particular seminar in early 1900s in Seneca Falls, New York, that talked about the disparities of whether it was income, education, the sexism, all of those situations that we suffer now. She was one of the leaders of that particular document. So the Sojourner Syndrome speaks to the differences in our wealth, in our jobs, in our the ways in which, for example, we couldn't even have a single passport. If you were married, you had to be on your husband's passport as some anonymous person. As a single woman, you could have a passport, but not if you were married, because basically we were their property. So that sojourner syndrome is a combination of our history, our meaning African American women, and the history of women. Sojourner was a person who fought tirelessly and did not take care of herself, and thus died from leg ulcers from diabetes. So, that syndrome is what continues in our community, because we take care of everyone else but ourselves, it seems, and it has got to stop. And to your point in your opening statement about self-care not being selfish, no, you cannot take care of someone else unless you take care of yourself first. That is just not the way it's supposed to work. It is not selfish. It's about self-love. And based on our history, and for good reasons, self-love has been not a particularly high commodity in our community. So we have to get to that by doing small things daily and consistency that let yourself know, I'm loving myself today. I'm loving myself consistently. It could be 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a whole day. Maybe you go for a 10-minute walk 3 times a week. Maybe you drink more water. Maybe you get more sleep. Maybe you say nice things to yourself. Maybe you hug yourself. These things sound simple, but they have to be done in order to create the wellness that we deserve. This is not something we don't deserve. We deserve to be well. And that's the premise of the book. The Sojourner Syndrome, I combine with this concept of weathering. Weathering is a concept that's also in sociology that speaks to how we have been worn like rock, like soil, into sand to disintegrate. And we have been weathering through marginalization. We've been weathering through the sick care system. We've been weathering through the racism. We've been weathering through so many, many systems in our country that we have turned to sand. And then the Superwoman syndrome is also a sociological construct that comes as a response to our being called Jezebel and Mammy and all the things that we were called during Jim Crow. And that was a response to say, hey, we're resilient. We are bold. We are beautiful. We are all that we need to be. Stop demeaning us. So, but Superwoman, like Superman, has its kryptonite. Superman used to be worn down by the kryptonite. We get worn down by the Superwoman aspect. Yes, we are resilient. Yes, we are bold. Yes, we are all those things, but we have to be resilient with our self-care as well.
So one of the things I know when I took a look at this book, which by the way, I completely enjoyed, it really spoke to me and to what I was dealing with. And some of the chapters I was familiar with. I talk a lot on my radio show about the racial weathering of Black women and pushing against this Superwoman mythology, that the Superwoman mythology is actually killing us because we are training our daughters of how to live up to being the mule of the world. And we know that mules get kicked around, mules get abused, mules get discarded. And we were putting ourselves in that position to do that. But I really started to think a lot about this notion of do something different and take control. So I have been working hard to be healthy. And now I'm challenging myself to be well. Because when I don't sleep, but I still get up and I go to the gym and I make healthy food choices, I'm still not consciously choosing to be well. Like it's not just about working out every day or choosing, a tofu sandwich over a burger. But it's the things you talked about. Like, what does it mean to remove people from your life who are stressful? What does it mean to make a decision that adult children are adults first? And we can stop mothering them in the same way we mothered them when they were 7 as a form of being well, as a wellness check to say, we don't have to mother our spouses or our partners. We don't have to do that. So can you talk a little bit about how we can disconnect from toxicity, whether it's a toxic person or a job or a situation?
Well, boundaries is a big word, and boundaries are very, 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 very necessary. We have to have boundaries, and that's part of self-love. This is not, oh my gosh, I'm separating from my good friend because she spreads gossip about me and I feel guilty. No, Absolutely not. There's no reason for you to feel guilty. She is, or he is, toxic. That's just the way it is. And that means you have to create some space. You have to love yourself enough to say, I am not doing this anymore. Today is the last day I am doing this behavior and this activity. And you can share that information with the person if you like, but you have to share it with yourself. And one of the things you can do is write a letter. Write a letter about all these experiences, tear it up and burn it, and let that energy go. And then you can have a conversation with whomever this is, and just share, this is what I'm doing. Or you cannot share. It doesn't matter. You can just share by saying, I'm not picking up the phone, or I'm not going to say yes to your requests anymore to do X, Y, and Z. If they ask you why, you're going to tell them why in a loving way, because you're not respectful, because you're not good to me, because I'm getting people out of my life who don't love me in the way that I choose to be loved. Again, it's a choice. Everything goes back to choice every single day, every single moment. If you don't choose wellness, you're not going to be well. That's really just that simple. And wellness comes in a big package with a big bow. It's a great gift. It's a great gift. If you choose wellness in thought, word, and deed, then you are on the right path. You know, even the Bibles, and I'm not a big Bible person, don't misunderstand me, although I have a chapter on meditation, but it says, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, what does that mean? Love yourself first. You can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. You can't love other people if you don't love yourself. You are resentful, you are passive aggressive, you are a lot of things, but you're not loving yourself. So it starts with you. It starts with your thoughts, it starts with your words, it starts with your deeds.
And something I was looking at, going through the chapter on the food you should eat.
Ah.
But I mean, as we all do, I was going through this kind of doing my checklist. No, I don't drink soft drinks. I don't drink coffee. I gave up coffee maybe 135 days ago. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm healthier, but I've given up coffee. And even though it was like black coffee with almond milk, I'm like, no, I'm moving to teas. I did that. So I have most of the things, I don't eat eggs at all. I'm trying to give up my mozzarella sticks. I'm working on it. But the thing that got me is that you talk about eat the fish that swim, but not the fish that crawl.
That's right.
So I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because I was always told, and this could be incorrect, I understand that, stay away from the catfish. I was always told that, that's like the pig of the sea, right? So that if you're going to eat fish, because I'm a pescatarian and that I only eat fish. So and really it's just salmon and some light tuna, trying to be as healthy as possible, but also because I have a weak stomach. I noticed back when I was in college, every time I ate beef, every time I ate pork, I was violently ill. Now, I never thought about this growing up in my household, because my parents would say, oh, you think you're sick. You're not really sick. You'll be fine in the morning, right? But when I got to college, it's like, why is it that every time the cafeteria has a burger, I'm sick the next day? So I completely gave up beef and pork and then chicken and turkey. So what is this thing around the fish that crawl, and then your thoughts around catfish?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, your original question started with, how did my degree in sociology deal with naturopathic medicine? So again, this book starts with the sociological part of me, if you will, and then it moves into the naturopathic part of me. My being a naturopathic physician is a calling. You know, Spirit said to me, you need to go across country, sell everything, and go to Bastille University to be a naturopathic physician. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do that. I just got a PhD. I'm not going back to school for 4 more years. But I did. And that's a funny story in and of itself. Anyway, so yes, the thing about naturopathy is just so beautiful, because it is everything from nature. And of course, food is part of that. And when I say food, I don't mean the food that we get in packages, the labels that you can't read the words of. That's not food. Food, by definition, is supposed to support growth and nurturing. That does not do it. So to your point, maybe the burgers had, at that time, had antibiotics, hormones, and other things in it that were not sitting well with you. But as a blood type O, you should, I'll put that in quotes, be able to eat some beef from time to time. Pork, we should never eat. I'm sorry, I don't care about the next white meat, the best white meat. No, pork was something that we ate because we had to, because that's what the enslavers left on the table or on the ground, and that's what we did. but that is not something that we should be doing. It's high in fat, it's high in salt. It is not a good food. Lots of the meats, unless you get it free range, have antibiotics and hormones and tranquilizers in them. Many people know this. I don't want to say most, but the hormones were to get them to slaughter faster. The tranquilizers were to calm them down, especially the chickens that were debeaked and put in one single pen, just like we were when we were first captured. And then the hormones were to fatten us up, fatten the chickens up, like I said, and the tranquilizers to slow the pace down in the chicken coops. And then we then eat that, we ingest that. And that's not what we're supposed to be taking in. So unless you get it free range, you're taking in those substances. The same thing with cattle, you're taking in those substances. Now, many stores now have free range chicken, free range beef, etc. I would look for that if you can. And a little aside here, I know that some of that food is expensive. I know that some people cannot afford that, but choose one thing a week. Maybe it's just a bushel of kale that's organic, the things that that don't have a shield, the things that don't have a rind. Choose one thing a week and buy that one thing so that at least you're not getting those pesticides in you, because pesticides cause cancer, pesticides cause disease. We all know that now. So just choose one thing a week. Maybe it's a peach, maybe it's a grape, maybe it's a bushel of kale, like I said, maybe it's chicken. So just do one thing a week that can increase your health and allow you to know that you're doing something good for you and your family. Now, to your question about the fish, fish that crawl are shellfish. They're high in cholesterol and they're
Crabs.
dirty. Yeah,
Crabs.
now, of course, I'm in the DMV area, so I said, sure, go have some crabs, not a problem. But do I want you having a bushel of crabs and a Budweiser beer every Friday night? No, absolutely not. But occasionally, if you want crabs or shrimp or whatever, but notice occasionally, not every weekend. People think, well, I'm not eating meat, so I'll eat shrimp. No, shrimp is high in cholesterol. The fish that swim are salmon and cod and halibut and mackerel and sardines and branzino and Arctic char. Those top white fish are the fish that are better for you, not the bottom fish. And catfish doesn't swim.
Well,
So
I don't know what they do.
we can get over the catfish now. So those are things that I would encourage and do encourage my patients to eat. My blood type O's, my blood type ABs occasionally, my blood type A's occasionally. But you can, again, I would try again some free range turkey or chicken if you care to. And if not, then the fish is fine. As an O, you should be able to handle that, but not with all those hormones and substances in it. That's the thing.
Now, I want to ask you just to kind of drill down a little bit into that because you know that I'm a blood type O, and you keep referencing that because you have a whole chapter in your book
Right.
that talks about setting your diet up to meet or match your blood type. Can you talk a little, because you talk about the O's, the ABs, the A's. Can you talk just a bit about that?
Right. So my naturopath and mentor, let me again start from the beginning. When I first went to my naturopath, I was 31 years old. I had a face full of acne. I was 30 pounds overweight. I was tired all the time. Now, yes, I had a very high profile job. I was a special assistant in the Carter administration with Patricia Roberts Harris, blah, 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 using my PhD. But I felt at 31, I should not be this tired and I should not look this bad. So I started going to a naturopath in New York. I look better than I did when I was 31, quite frankly, right now. And he said to me, you should be a naturopath after hearing my story. Because one of the things that is so important in healthcare, which doesn't exist in the sick care system, is to listen to the person's story. We all have a story. We all have things that have happened to us that then trigger our immunity, that trigger ourselves to move into this thing called dis-ease. Dis-ease just doesn't happen in, all of a sudden. I have patients say, yeah, doc, I just got diabetes on Monday. No, you didn't just get diabetes on Monday. You got diabetes from the moment you kept eating those Kit Kats or Twix or whatever that stuff is that you eat. So you have to be mindful that it's a progression, it's a process. So he said to me, you should be a naturopath. And I said, excuse me, sir. Now, mind you, this was in 1982, 81. Just give me some of those bat feathers or whatever you boil up in the back room, and I'm going to go back to DC, because nobody had ever heard of naturopathy. I hadn't even heard of it. A friend just said I might want to do this because I didn't have any diagnosable disease. I was just tired all the time. And I was too young to be this tired. So I thought about what he said, and over a 6-month period of time, I began to look and feel so much better. I was like, what is this stuff? So I went back to Howard, where I'd been teaching, and started going to school for pre-med. So what does this have to do with it? He is the person who started this blood type diet. His name was James D'Adamo. He did a lot of research in Germany and came up with this idea that the one thing that is consistent in all human beings is blood, but we all have different types of blood. And so therefore we shouldn't all be eating the same thing. That just didn't make sense to him. Now, there's a lot of controversy around this, but I can tell you, Dr. Kaye, without a doubt, 100%, clinically, this diet has made a difference in every patient I have seen, clinically. Now, again, some of the research is a little shaky or wonky. His son, Peter D'Adamo, has taken this concept and expanded it. And clinicians like me, who are part of the fellowship and part of the, and a fellow in this particular institute, have also used it day in and day out to create wellness. I was a vegetarian for 7 years before I met him, and I was tired all the time. My blood type is B. I should have a little bit of fish. I should have a little bit of lamb, no chicken, which is fine with me. I haven't had chicken since that day. And so it has worked for me, and it has worked for every patient that I have seen. So again, this is a clinical situation. And I know that clinically, this blood type thing works. Now, if a person, now that's in an ideal world. If a person has diabetes, however, I would, and they're an A, ideally they can be vegetarian, but if they're an A and diabetic, they do need to have some animal protein. So I don't want to give a blanket statement here and then people take it and run with it and get ill. This is not to be used as a prescription. This is an interview, folks. So just be mindful of what it is that I'm saying and what you're doing. So yes, that's how I came upon the blood type diets.
Now I was looking at, because I'm O, and it says that an O in an ideal world should not be a vegetarian, or I'm assuming even a pescatarian, because you're saying an O should eat chicken, lamb, bison, some fish, not shellfish, of course, and turkey, and actually to not do starches and beans because it's not something that O's digest easily.
That's right. That's right. Again, that's clinically. That's what it is. But an A can do just the opposite. So all of your family is opposite from you. Now, you can certainly just stay with fish if you want to do that. That's fine. But the point is you have to have some animal protein. You cannot be vegetarian. It's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you. I don't know your health history. And maybe there are moments, for example, that I might have an O be vegetarian if they're suffering from some particular disease syndrome. But as a general rule, I don't have O's being vegetarian. No.
Okay, so now I have my last piece. This is really changing the way I'm thinking about everything. I'm like, I'm an O. What does this mean?
That's good.
But I'm challenging myself to think differently. I want to ask you about chapter 7 and chapter 8. So chapter 7 says, go to sleep. What a concept. You mentioned earlier about this notion of 6 to 8 hours. I can't be the only one who is struggling with this time change. And for some reason, ever since the time has changed, or maybe I'm in the middle of stress, but waking up every single morning and then struggling to get back to sleep, even going to bed earlier. What do you suggest? How do we relax so that we can actually rest, not just collapse and fall out because you're dead tired, but like relaxing so you can sleep?
Right. Well, one of the things I say in the book is that you have to have a sleep health pattern. Okay. So generally speaking, you want to do something like a little calcium magnesium. That's what I have my patients do before bed. First of all, you want to shut everything down at 10, everything. No iPads, iWatches, iPhones, nothing. And all of that stuff goes out of your bedroom. Your bedroom is not your office. That is not the purpose of your bedroom. So all of those technological instruments need to go. You take a shower, you go to bed. You don't take a shower and get into bed and watch TV. You don't take a shower and get into bed and talk on the phone. You don't take a shower and get into bed and read the Bible. These are some of the things I hear. You don't take a shower and get into bed and play a game. No, you get in the bed, you go to sleep. After you shower, ideally your room should be on 62, 60 degrees, 58 even, because a cool temperature allows you to relax and sleep better. So those are just some things that are tips in there. There's some others that I encourage people to just work with, even if, it's just 2 days a week to start. Because I have, like you, so many patients who are busy and they're doing their thing and they're up until midnight and 1 o'clock. Now, are there times when you're up until midnight? Yes, I have experienced that because I just finished this book and it just came out and I'm doing lots of things, but that is not my general pattern. Do I have a TV in our bedroom? No, there is no TV. There's no TV. You cannot watch the news at night and think that you're going to sleep peacefully, because the news this accelerates and makes your stress hormones go crazy. So you cannot do that. So you have to stop all of that at a reasonable hour, take a shower, go to bed. And again, not get on your phone, not read the Bible, not do all these kinds of things. People say, well, reading makes me go to sleep. Okay, but then I wake up. Yes, because all the things you've read are now in your consciousness. So just go to bed. And also exercise. Now, if you want to do a yoga pose, that's fine. But vigorous exercise before bed is not necessarily the best thing to do, because that also gets you revved up and going. Exercise is best in the morning or sometime, like 5 o'clock maybe would be the latest, depending upon your schedule.
Which is where I was going to end, to talk about exercise. You said just do it, even baby steps.
Baby steps.
Can you talk? You said really just 30 minutes are what people need. I want to have you talk about the time, and then I actually want to have you connect exercise even to blood type, because you have a whole piece about, it's not just what you eat with your blood type, even the way you exercise.
Right. So yeah, well, I start people at 10 minutes 3 times a week. I mean, again, baby steps. Because keep in mind now, Dr. Kaye, over 50% of African-American women are either overweight or obese. So I'm not going to have somebody who's obese out there jogging 3 miles. No, because that can be hurtful. It can be dangerous. It can be damaging. But 10 minutes 3 times a week, they can handle that. It's funny because I used to start with a half an hour. And they say, Doc, I didn't have half an hour, so I didn't do anything. Okay. Then I went down to 20 minutes. I didn't have 20 minutes, so I didn't do anything. So now I'm down to 10 minutes after the last 15 years of practice. 10 minutes, 3 times a week, we're good. And then they want to do more. So that's a good thing because they see the benefit. They'll say, yeah, I'm sleeping better. I'm feeling so good. I did a mile today. So these little encouraging moments are good for our psyche and good for our well-being. So yes, there are different exercises for different blood types. Blood type O, you said you go to the gym. I hope your activity is vigorous because you need vigorous exercise, aerobic, vigorous exercise. Blood type A's, who are the opposite of you, need softer, gentler exercises. Yoga, Tai Chi, Aikido, swimming. Why? Because the blood type A always has a thought, plan, process, something going on in their mind that keeps them like this all the time. Meaning that they're always on alert. Their minds are very, 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 very active. They have a thought, a plan, a project, something that they're considering doing. And they can't do it all because they're just too involved in being so active. So something that calms their central nervous system is what we want for blood type A. Blood type ABs are kind of in between A and B, obviously. So they can use the same kinds of exercises that an A can use because they have an active mind too. Blood type B, which is what I am, is the best of both worlds because it's in between an A and an O. So all of those exercises are good, whether it's something vigorous and like running. When I was in medical school, I used to run 6 miles a day just to keep my sanity. I don't do that now because I want to keep my knees. I used to run a lot. So then I went to biking. So now I spin regularly and I swim. So those things are what keep me active. And then I do yoga occasionally. Yoga is excellent for blood type ABs and blood type As because, again, there's a calming part, there's a centering part, there's also an active part. And all of that's important for those 2 blood types. So there is a difference. So if I have an A who's jogging, 5 miles a day, I'm going to ask them to, back that down a little bit and do something else, or at least add some yoga to it so we can calm the central nervous system. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andrea Sullvian. The book is The Sacrifices of.
Can I just add one thing?
Yes, ma'am, please.
The last chapter is about meditation and what I know to be true. Okay. And that's so important because there's so much going on, especially now. There's so much going on in this world now that we have to find some inner world activity. There's too much out here. There's too many distractions. There's too much pain. There's too much negativity. We're spiraling in negativity and wondering why we don't feel well, because it's all around us. So we have to find a place inside of us that is well and whole and joyful, that allows more joy to come forward, because that's the key to the wellness, to have joy and have it more abundantly. That's our birthright. This is not something we don't deserve. We deserve this. God didn't put us here and say, okay, I'm gonna make y'all sick and broke and tired. No, it's to be here to have joy and have it more abundantly. And so that means the kingdom of heaven is within, and we have to go within to find that kingdom of heaven, because out here is not the kingdom of heaven. We can create it as such with the people we talk to, with the service that we do, with how we provide and how we live our light through the world. But the kingdom of heaven is within. So I encourage you all, even I have patients that say, Doc, I can't sit down for 10 minutes. Okay, do 1 minute 10 times a day. Just 1 minute, 10 times a day of deep breathing, of something that allows you to feel connected to something other than this pain out here. Because there's a lot of it, and we need to be able to express our light and not dim it any longer.
I love that. Express our light and not dim it any longer. And I'm walking away with to have joy and have it more abundantly. Folks, the book is The Sacrifices of Superwomen, Natural Remedies to Restore Balance. Dr. Sullvian was the first African-American to receive a PhD in sociology and criminology from the University of Pennsylvania. She's the first to receive a degree in naturopathic medicine, which I think is really interesting. And I'm glad we had this conversation. And she was appointed by the mayor of Washington, D.C. to serve on the Board of Medicine. And she also received an honorary Doctor of Science degree from Sonoran University. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to your listening audience. God bless us all. Peace.